And I'd like to welcome you all here tonight. And most of what I'm going to say, a lot of people know anyway, so I apologise for that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Anna, and I'm the present chair of Communiachtaí Scríbhneach. And some of the committee members are here as well. And we're going to put on badges, we Communiachtaí badges, so that everyone would know who we were, but we forgot about them. Are they there somewhere?
No.
I thought that was a good idea, but we forgot. Before Ruairidh's presentation, because he's the main man tonight, I thought I would just like to give you a little bit of background to this consultation that we're having tonight and tomorrow. And as many of you know, in 2018, Communiachtaí Scríbhneach was resurrected. And at that time, I remember looking at a map of the Western Isles showing all the heritage centres and Communiachtaí. And there was this blank space in Scríbhneach. So a few of us decided that maybe we should try and do something about it. So an article was written in Ruairidh News with a plea for people who were interested in preserving and recording the heritage of the area from Upper Call to Grace, that's an area, to come forward and remedy the situation. And people did come forward, which was fantastic, and a constituted common came into being just a few months later. And we are also a charity registered with OSCAR, the Office of the Scottish Charity Regulator, which is a big advantage when we're trying to apply for any funding, apart from anything else. And having a constituted Communiachtaí also means that individuals can access funding to pursue their individual projects. You know, someone might be interested in immigration, which is on people's minds at the moment with the centenary of the Metagama coming up. Someone might be interested in archaeology, in song or film, whatever. The list is endless. And a Communiachtaí can be a vehicle for pursuing these interests further, and ultimately everyone benefits from that. So the ongoing work of the Communiachtaí, it enriches the community now and in the future, and for those to come. However, a Communiachtaí needs a home from which to function. And up until now, as you realise, we've been working from houses, and we office at Gordon's, where Muffin is at the moment. We were there for a wee while. And we've actually achieved quite a lot, I think, within that time. But we do need a base. So we started looking, but unlike other Communiachtaí in the Western Isles, we have no old school or similar building in the area. Hiya! Come on in. There's a seat there and seats. Oh, there you go. This is just the boarding bit. This is just the boarding bit anyway, so you're not going to see much. Yeah, so there was no old school building to utilise like many common have done, which has good pros and cons for that. As you may have read, we will have a modular building in place soon, but that's a temporary solution, and in the long term we really want a permanent home, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. Those of you who have speak about that later. In 2019, with funding secured from the Crown Estate, A feasibility study was commissioned by Communiachtaí Sciadach to advise on the prospects of securing suitable permanent accommodation for the organisation. Share management was appointed to carry out the report, and a professional team was formed to provide technical information. And the feasibility is now available on our website for you to see after tonight. And there are also copies of it here, but it is available online. The professional team of construction professionals selected through tender to deliver the technical elements was the architect and principal designer, Bard. Do you say Bard or B-A-R-D?
Bard.
That's what I was assuming. I thought, let's go on right over there. Bard, Ayaja, Glasgow and Tulsa. Quantity surveying and cost consultant, IMQS, Stornoway, and civil and structural engineering was Total Design Bag. So they're all local professionals. Initially, we thought that it might have been an idea that the premises might be incorporated with this existing building if it was agreed and if renovations were possible. But in the end, we decided that it would be better for us to have a dedicated building which we could control for the best of our needs. So it was considered that a new build on vacant land, this vacant land down there, close to the community hut here, would be our best option. The site is ideal for development, as I'm sure you would all agree. You know, the site could be made more attractive. And the development would bring the site back into public use for the benefit of the whole community. Historically, the former Communiachtaí used the school buildings after they were vacated by the Education Department, and many of you will also have been educated in the old school buildings, or else you're related to many who were. Some of you here were educated in the old buildings. I know. So here we are. We've reached the stage of consulting the community. Because before it's possible to fully embark on this huge, exciting project, and before any funding can be explored, we need to consult you as members of the community. It'll be fine. The proposed heritage building will be for the benefit of all age groups, and to this end, we need your help to go forward. In addition to the building being a place for research, preserving and archiving the heritage of the Sciadach, which is of great importance, it would also provide a focal point in the area where events could be held, formal and informal, large and small, exhibitions, gatherings. We would also hope to hold social programs for elderly and socially isolated residents, as well as training and education programs. That's the dream. And visitors would, of course, gain valuable information about the area, or find out about their own family history, which many people are trying to do. If the projects can be delivered, in addition to the social benefits just mentioned, there would be economic benefits to the community also. Tourism would be promoted, and the heritage sectors and increasing visitor numbers to the area. Employment would be provided during and post-construction. Redundant land would come into community use, and hopefully local businesses would benefit, potentially creating indirectly jobs over the longer term. And very importantly, a low carbon exemplar project would be created. But, as I've said, your help is needed. And the first way you can help is by completing the community survey on the proposed building and project. I know many of you have already completed it online, and for those of you who are more comfortable completing it in hard copy, there are copies here, and quite a lot of people have already taken copies from the local shops. So if you haven't filled one in and would like a hard copy, there they are. And if you haven't filled it in, please fill it in by the 30th of July and tell all your friends and neighbours as well. It can be anonymous, you don't have to say, give your name. It doesn't take long to complete. And the completed forms in hard copy can be posted. There's a post box in Gordon's, clearly labelled. So as I said, by the 30th of July, the forms should be in. And there's a lot of space in the form for your views and suggestions. So please make use of the space there. It's vital for as many people as possible to complete this survey. Oh, it's warm. Because any funding applications are going to need evidence of community support, as I'm sure. And then after analysis of the survey, a report will be made public on the website, in Locatua News and the local press, and then we will see what happens from there. We'll discuss that later. The Community in its current form can't manage a project of that size on its own, so we need your help. I keep saying we need your help, but we do. Other communities throughout the Western Isles, as I've said, have wonderful heritage centres. The activities within adding greatly to the communities. Skeetabach equally deserves such a building and opportunities. We would hope to complement the great work that goes on in the community through the church, the Upper Call Centre, and here in the community hut. What we would be doing would be complementing all that. And the exciting new building, which you've seen, some of you in the visuals over there, and the model, which you can look at more clearly afterwards. That exciting new building would be a beacon in the area, telling the story of the community for those in the area and out with it. Testament to all those who have gone before us, and also testament to our environment. The Community, this community, preserves and promotes the culture and language of Skeetabach, locally and globally, and we would also hope to promote social health and well-being. Where better to do that than in a landmark building in the centre of the community, where there would be a welcome for everyone. And now, much more importantly, I'd like to introduce Ruairidh, whom some of you know. One person even knew him as a pupil. And as was mentioned earlier, it's Ruairidh and his team. Ruairidh with his team was the architect in a feasibility study, and he is about to explain his design and vision of the building. And afterwards he'll be very happy to take questions. As many of you know, Ruairidh is from Tulsa and is very closely connected to Bach, having been a pupil at School of Bach. And his family is from Bach and and he also went to the Nicholson Institute. And following that, he moved to Glasgow. You were influenced by the work of Charles McIntosh. And he studied architecture at Strathclyde School of Architecture, as well as a short spell studying in Barcelona, I believe. Then, following graduation, he went to Barcelona, from Barcelona to Bach. He returned, and he was working in the studio of Miralles, Tagliabue. Some of you may remember these names from the Scottish Parliament. Before returning to Scotland, where he gains his architect's qualification. And he now tutors and lectures at Strathclyde and runs the architecture studio Bard. And he undertakes work across Scotland, but particularly in the Outer Hebrides. And some of you will have seen some of the work Ruairidh has been doing in the Outer Hebrides recently. You may be aware of his involvement at the moment with Common Neachtri Erishgai, where there are big, exciting plans happening. And those of you who have been to Common Neachtri Nish, Ruairidh also that was his baby as well. And that design was nominated in the Public Buildings category in the Scottish Design Awards. Yeah.
I remember.
Should I read that?
No, it was the Elsie. Was Elsie. Maybe.
Because I was trying to do a wee bit.
Civic Trust, maybe.
You know.
I should.
Yeah, you know.
I don't know.
Okay. So, without further ado, as they say, it's all yours.
Thank you. Very much. Can you all see this?
Because there is no screen. I hope you like how high definition our light switch is on every single slide is. Can you hear me okay as well? If I get quieter, please just throw some of the pool balls this direction.
Do you want these lights off or on?
What do you guys prefer? I'm up for the video as well. What do you think, Dolian?
Be fine.
Either or. Do you just want off or yeah, more romantic. I was also educated in the newer building. My mother was educated in that building as well, so direct descendants in terms of who was educated here would actually be my gran and her family and her brothers and sisters. I'm actually trying to remember what slide comes next, but so this is the, obviously the area, as Anna has been saying, the area that we're looking at in terms of a kind of missing link in the Common Neachtri chain across the islands, and it has been a very successful chain to varying degrees across the whole Outer Hebrides. And it is about time that A, this site was developed, and B, that there is a facility like this in back at the same time, and a public building too. But there's been talking about who has been educated on this site also. So I was tracing back and through the excellent book on Scolavak as well. Are you spotting people as well?
Yeah, Kenny McKeever. So the teacher.
Do you remember the photographer?
You're not blind there.
Well, that's my granny there. So Erika and Oig from, you were saying Call, so number 50 Call. She wasn't just allowed to say that she came from Call, it was 50 Call. And no matter what. So, and then actually, really, that's 1937. She actually came back to this site really because she was working for the ski knit. I don't know if you remember the ski knit that was there. She was doing all the Icelandic jumpers and hats and stuff, and so that's on here. So that's our links to it. But anyway, so who we are. So BARD, it actually does. You could say BEARD if you wanted as well. And I mean, as a side story, when we started it up, we said we had to have a name next to it, and we said BARD Architects. It actually sounds like bad architects if you say it too fast. But it actually stands for Balchin Ailtrochs Ruimdanoch. So townships, architecture, room for poetics, and it's kind of a method statement. And what we want to do is to try and do projects like this and work with a community and groups of people to try and achieve other things, and also a few other things along the way. But as Anna was saying as well, you might be familiar, this is our first, I suppose, public work, and it's a wee while ago now. And I actually started off from a student project really, as an exchange for letting myself and some friends sleep on the floor. And it was to draw the old the schoolhouse, which was condemned by the council because they abandoned it in the 60s and were about to pull it down. So we treated that part of the building as being almost like a listed building, and then allowed everything else to transform, to adapt that school building into an open and inviting and friendly, hopefully, museum and public building. So the transformation is what the really important thing is. And from there, I mean, this is one of the major differences between here and there, is that some of these other communities, and many of the other ones, have a building to inherit. And here we don't, so we have to think about that. So it's a slightly different challenge. There's other opportunities around that as well. But in this, there's a number of elements where it was creating almost a shell to allow the history to evolve and to be displayed and such like as well. So you may know it. I mean, it's what we're noticing there is actually how much the organisation has grown with the building and actually is adapting it to their own needs, and that's the success, I think, of it, and that's the way that it should be. And then in it, Ilin Hoike, which is the working title for this project up in down in Eriskay, I've just come from there today actually, is essentially one where again they're inheriting a building. So this in the middle, and it's in a bit of dire straits again. Council abandoned it in 2013, I think, and the water's been coming in the roof ever since. So we're actually right now saving that. They're on site doing all the slate works, but it's actually allowing all these other functions around in order to plug in and allow the heritage aspect to work. It's a slightly different brief to here, but it's just to give a kind of slight background as to the kind of work that we're working on, and also some of the thinking that can be adapted and changed to this project here. But the key criteria is that this has to be right for Community Skidavak and also the wider community. So this is what today is all about, is to really record what you think. You know, it's you might like the models, you might like the other bit, is to give us comments and commentary, because it can be adaptable, and it should be adaptable, and now's the time to do it and to make sure it's right, and then critically to record support as well. That's fundamental for the success of the project. So on to the interesting one, or the one that we're here for today. So in terms of historical parts of the we go into as much history as we can in a lot of these projects. And you can see here, so this is the main road as you can see it, and there's a gravel pit here, which is where Gordon Diesel's is now, I think, roughly. And then the school appears here first of all in 1890. It's not too long, a couple of decades maybe after the Education Act. But it starts off quite far back from the road, closer to here. And then starts to adapt. I'm actually just wondering if you guys can see. Is it okay? I'll try and become opaque. And then by 1960, you can see that actually, well, everything is growing around it also. But also at the same time that this building, which is obviously the first one, has then been extended with another annex. And then there's the typical kind of flat roofed canteens and other buildings slotting around it. And the schoolhouse has been built by then. Gordon still hasn't appeared yet, but not on that map anyway. And then by 1970, you can see that some of the site is starting to change slightly. And then I think by 1980, oh, where is it? It's up there, here. Oh, sorry, I think it's off the map. I'll need to tell the office. But anyway, there's kind of the diagrams of it, of the evolution of the site, and then I can't see through the pipe. 1980s, these buildings are starting to get demolished, and by now they're gone, essentially. But that's an overlay of what we have today, which is the shed that's down there. In here, we've got the shipping containers here, but the dotted lines are all the previous buildings that were on the site. So it was quite a big camp. Well, when I say big, it was quite significant, and it is a shame that they're lost. You know, but we can't cry over spilt milk. But you can see the tower here, the canteen building. I'm not sure which one of these was the ski net. I'm not sure. I think it was one of the low ones. Was this one?
Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. And then, and you can see how quite lovely that is. I quite like it. But yeah, sadly gone. But the schoolhouse is still remaining, and the boundary walls there really. And then looking at it from the other side, you can see as well. But yeah, and then ever since it's been an open site, a site in 1960. But in reality, though, as Anna was mentioning, and as you know, this site is then quite emotive also. One, for it being a kind of vacant site, but also it's a very meaningful site for the fact of it was this, you know, the school is the centre of a community really. And although we still have Skolavak, this site was where it was, and it's in the middle of the community as well. It's right on the main road. and right now it's in a bit of a state. So there's kind of meaning and appropriation to it, which is quite interesting as well. But as you can see, it's just, you can see how vacant it is from space. And as a site as it is at the moment, going on to this, but as we're going to disagree with Scottish Water here. This is apparently where the water main, the sewer main is, but it's clearly wrong, and we knew that. But I think we're going to prove them that it's not right. But in any case, that's not the main water here as well. But within the feasibility study, which was conducted maybe about a wee while ago anyway, no, about a year maybe, I can't remember.
Yeah, it was completed at the end of last year.
End of last year.
21.
Yeah. Through this, the first things that we started doing, and you'll see, it was actually start to analyse the site and see where's appropriate for a siting of a new building and where's less good. So, because the red line is quite a large area really. So you can almost anchor into almost anything, and the site that we've proceeded with through the analysis is quite close, well, or towards the end of the road, to be open and public and to be part of that kind of streetscape, really, as part of the community, and to be seen really. And the site, although this isn't properly topographically surveyed, the site is sloping up the way, we think by about 2.5 meters, maybe more, from one side to the other, which has an impact on the levels, and you'll see in the design of how that's there. So in terms of the brief then, so the brief was to test as well as a site, is to test then how the building could potentially work. So the suggestion was a space for gatherings, much like this really, and I'm just trying to think of whether we could fit everyone, and we could. So in future this could be held in the new building, but also that kind of flexible space that can also be used for exhibition and display, and other events too. It could be choir practice, it could be cinema, it could be knitting, it could be all sorts really. But there was also a discussion around not wanting to take away from the established facilities also, so larger events possibly being in the upper call centre or vice versa. But in any case, a big flexible space in the heart of it. Also about a small kitchen as well, which we liked that in the brief, because any Hebridean welcome is always with a cup of tea or next to a stove. And an archive facility, a store facility, and in order for collection of artifacts. And one thing worth mentioning is also within the Communiacity network, a lot of them actually have different, I wouldn't say priorities, but different things that seem to be their centre of gravity really. So NES have an amazing archive in genealogical research, and also have good artifacts as well. Tall stuff from memory, I'm not sure how many artifacts. I was going to say what we have, because I'm still Tolstonian, I think, and I can maybe tells. But and Eriskay right now, they have a collection, but they don't know what it is, because it's all in different lofts. And the one thing that they say we definitely have is the bath that came out of the politician, the ship that went down. So I was saying, oh, so is that protected right now? And they're, no, we're feeding ponies with it. So I'm like, great, that's another part of its history. But so there's different nuances of things, and I think that within this is that the building being adaptable as the organisation grows into it too, because this will be here for a long time too. So in terms of site analysis then, when we're thinking of the anchoring, this kind of red blob is roughly the area where we're thinking. And first is the thing of approach. So one of the challenges, you've got cars that need to park around the back, and then you've got from the street, you've got this kind of thing. So the door is kind of in the middle. The sun path, so I'm analysing where the sun comes from, where it sets, where the views are, where the prevailing wind is, which means that we turn the door away from it, and the major views. So kind of just the kind of basics. And then in terms of starting to think of how do you get that brief to start to work, and this is only the tip end of the iceberg of some of the drawings and sketches, and starting to think of concept development. So in a way, some of that is marks by Miro actually. Birth of the World. But anyway, starting to form a project around that, and thinking of hard edges, soft edges, and just arrangements, and going through the arrangements, but also testing completely in order to see how does it work in other directions. But what we're putting forward at the moment is still capable of doing that and being adapted as it goes. So okay, a few of these. So then starting to actually make these drawings make a bit more sense is then starting to then see how we can arrange things on site and make them work with scale. So things like the subsidiary accommodation towards the back, so toilets and stores, and then coming towards the front, as you'd probably expect, in order to sort of open it up again. So then starting with the kind of block models, and we do these with card in the office as well, in terms of some sort of arrangements, and starting to trial how these can work, and then how can they, so are we starting to get too big? Are we starting, do we want to do some sort of roof form? What the materials might want to be, what the meaning of those materials might want to be as well. And then, things start to develop and adapt and change and test until we start, and then also in consultation with the community, all the way through in terms of discussions around gardens or retail, what the nature of it could be. And the reason why we're showing this is just to show about what you see at the moment, how it's come to be. So in terms of the site then, what we have is a kind of rough area of roughly where the building would be situated. And then from there is establishing a boundary in terms of an edge. And from there, thinking about this gable that's then open and inviting and friendly, and also a signal to people that this is a public building, it's a civic building, and you get the kind of glimpses in and glimpses out, and there should be activities going on. So if there is activities going on, it's to draw people in at the same time, so that you can get people who maybe think that they're not interested by history or heritage or museums, but will see something and potentially be brought in. So it's a shop front really. And then the arrangement of subsidiary space to main space through the site, so the gubbings at the back, and then start to get the arrangement of the brief in terms of how it comes together. So first of all, we then have parking at the back, which is taken as read, the arrangements of how people can arrive at the site and then arrive at the building and then exit, and then where the door might be, so kind of in the middle, kind of in that elevation. And then in the middle, a stove at the heart of the project as well, and chimney, hearth, and then a kitchen right next to that. And it's just a small kitchen. It's for teas, coffees, but not the kind of lobster thermidors unless you really want to. And then the kind of turning, that you get this turn into the main space that then just falls in front of you, and then this arrangement where you get the kind of collection of chairs. We're suggesting in a kind of in a curve arrangement, but it's flexible for anything. And then almost this kind of organic edge, that is these kind of areas where you can put a spinning wheel in the window or a loom or move it around. So we call them the kind of wee chapels, and a strong gable to the road at the same time as a kind of gesture, and then turn it slightly for looking at the main view, because you can stand there and actually in certain tides see the kind of surf on top of the reefs down by Waterscourt as well. The archive facility around here to form this edge, you can see how this is becoming more organic against that straight edge. But in here you've got the office, which is a control point also, so you can monitor what's going on and also greet people as they come in. And then the archive towards the back, also where there's no direct daylight to come in and destroy any of the files. And then plant rooms and storage towards the back also. And it's worth pointing out just very quickly here as well about the low carbon. So this will be highly insulated and has been priced as being a highly insulated building, but also done with appropriate materials also, because it is a very important, one of the advantages you have by not having a building to inherit, so you don't have to upgrade an old building, which can be very difficult. In this case, we can go for supreme standards early on, and it's worthwhile. It takes down your running cost, and it's the right thing to do. And then how we integrate into the landscape. So when we were saying about the difference in level between top and bottom, it's an opportunity also for being able to sculpt the landscape around it and bed it in a bit. And then that's a kind of three-dimensional kind of view of how things might work, in terms of the door, the chimney, and then the seating, and then everything falling in from there. And then if you have a really strong hurricane, that still shouldn't happen in terms of the roof flying off, but this is just a view of trying to show how the roof structure and the different layers might work within the volumes, and we can show you that on the physical model that's caged in that box over there just now. And then how it could sit on the site, so identifying the parking area towards the back as an approximate at the moment, and then the building coming in along here, this kind of slight standoff to give a kind of breathing space between pavement and the building, and then some of this landscaping around here, and this entrance coming in, it's a kind of more defined route for vehicles and trying to make it safe as well. So the model, unfortunately I can't claim credit. I'd love to do it, but I don't get anywhere near the fun things as much anymore. This is Charlie. You can see all the used blades in there. So. But yes, I mean, we like building the models, and the company actually asked for this model in order to help with consultation, and it is kind of a bit like a toy, but just be careful. But it's a very useful tool for being able to test and show how the forms work, in a way more so than drawings. But then talking about drawings, this is a zoomed in version, and the pipe is distorting the cable there, but you can see, I'll just do this very briefly. You've got this moment where you get the ramp down into this area, ramp and steps down into the main area, kitchen, stove, toilet areas, plant room, storage, archive, and then this kind of fold that takes you in towards the door, and a sliding screen that can screen off the kitchen or screen off the main space, so you can boil a kettle and not disturb whoever is speaking. And then how it works in section as well. So we've got a roof light to try and drink in west light and bounce it, and then east light on this other elevation as well, and also in the south is reflected light of a little body of water, so you get the wee speckles. It's just wee details, and it's just thoughts at the moment, but that's how the spaces have been thought of. You can see how then the building steps up slightly with the land, and how it can integrate into these other elements. But in reality, at the moment, we're thinking timber frame, we're thinking a slate roof, and we're thinking blockwork walls around a timber frame at the moment, and painted out white. So it's quite traditional, but done in a slightly different way, a slightly more, I suppose, considered way, maybe potentially. It's a painted out blockwork. So we're going to experiment with it slightly, but experiment with a small e. That's how it looks from the other direction, from the south. I'm just thinking, is Santa arriving with your building? but that looks from there, from the southern elevation. You can actually, even in the common sense approach, the south being a bit more open makes sense also. And we've done this view almost as the first iteration, and thinking of it, we were very insistent that in this view that the church should be shown, because it's another one of the civic buildings, and showing it as part of that streetscape. What we have along here is obviously, there's your chimney, there's your roof light, there's this element that's got the banner on it showing whatever's happening, your name of your building, but also up here we have a barometer on the front of the building. Rather, everyone's got a clock on them with their phones now anyway, so we're thinking this kind of gesture of what's approaching or something. It's to reinforce that element of it being a civic building. People look out for it, a bit of a landmark at the same time. And you start to see these parts of activity in here, and then the landscaping doing its thing. And then that's the model. We'll show you how the roof comes off in a wee while as well. But the model sort of trying to show the same thing but in a different way. The same forms. You get these wee pockets of space externally also. So we wanted to be sort of inviting and friendly even when the building's closed. And then when you actually come to enter the building, this is where, well, you are here right now, but you kind of have this thing of the chimney on that diagonal. That does say Comunacti Skira Vac, but it actually looks even more difficult to read because of this chap. But Yeah, that's the name there. Obviously, we have a bench here. It's just because there was a shout out to Morales earlier on. You know, this is a bench by Morales. It's like a magic carpet in concrete. They're lovely, very comfy actually as well. There's one outside Parliament, and you know, peat stacks. But anyway, the site around the building should be thought of almost like exhibits in itself also. You know, so that there's, you know, it could be ploughs. It could be, you know, hopefully there's a Massey Ferguson wanting to be there, whatever. It's using the landscape as actually an extension of who you are and how you function. And then when you enter the building and turn, first of all you see this is your kitchen. So someone's been allocated to make all that tea, and then the space and a slight drop, slight change of material on the floor, and letting all the light come in, almost like a sundial, all the way through the day. You should be able to be in that space all day and just watch it, and then look out towards that view in the landscape. We also have these kind of horizontal ledges because floor space it is quite a compact building also, but these horizontal spaces where you can, you know, that could be quite equally put up high and kept out of the way, but instead of it going into a box in a store, it can be part of the decoration of the building, and the people being the decoration of the building also. Probably more important, and how it could look from the road, you know, at more twilight or dusk as well. That kind of warm, inviting, warm roof thing inviting you in at the same time, and along this kind of plinth here too. And as you can see, the weather's getting better at the same time. And I think really that's more or less where we are at the moment. And I'd be really happy to take any questions, or I suppose would we? I don't know. Yeah, it's coming after you as well. Yeah, yeah. Anything you might. Okay, but I would really encourage you to. Hello, is to fill out the forms on the paper over there with post-its. There's elements with the drawings of the site, the drawings of the building in different guises, but the post-its on it. What I encourage is to say what you like, what you don't like so much maybe, what you think could be, what you want to see, what you think back needs as a community. Because a big part of this also will be about, you know, as part of the justification for funding, it's also about how this will improve your lives in back and the community's life. So what back wants and what it needs to see. So go wild with the post-its and over there. And thank you very much.